You felt it, didn't you? That shift, that subtle change in their energy, the way they look at you now, or rather, the way they don't. The texts that used to come every hour now take days. The enthusiasm in their voice when they saw you replaced with politeness, cold, distant, professional, and you keep replaying the conversations in your mind, searching for the moment it changed. Was it something you said? Something you didn't do? Were you too available? Not interesting enough? You can feel it in your chest right now. That tightness, that knot of anxiety that wakes you up at 3 a.m. Because losing someone's interest doesn't just hurt. It attacks something deeper, your sense of worth, your identity, your place in their world. Here's what makes it worse. They haven't officially ended things. They haven't said the words. They're just fading, and that ambiguity, that hope mixed with dread, is psychological torture. So you do what most people do. You try harder. You initiate more. You become more available. You laugh louder at their jokes. You plan things. You ask more questions. You show more interest. You prove your value. And with every attempt, you feel them pulling further away. Because here's the truth nobody tells you. The moment you sense they were losing interest, they already had, and everything you've done since that moment, every extra text, every explanation, every attempt to rekindle what you had has only confirmed their decision to leave. You became the living evidence of why they're right to pull away. This isn't your fault. You weren't taught how to handle this. Society tells you to fight for what you want, to never give up, to show them your worth, to communicate, to try harder, but they never told you that sometimes trying harder is exactly what destroys whatever chance remained. The tragic part? You know this. Deep down, you can feel it. Every time you reach out and get a delayed response. Every time you sense the obligation that replies. Every time you see them online, but not responding to you. You know, but you can't stop yourself. Because stopping feels like giving up, and giving up feels like admitting you weren't enough. So the cycle continues. They pull away, you chase. They pull further, you chase harder. Until one day they're gone completely, and you're left wondering what you could have done differently. What if I told you that the moment you sense their interest fading, there was one response, immediate and counterintuitive, that could have changed everything. Not guaranteed to bring them back, but guaranteed to restore something more valuable, your dignity, your power, your peace. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, dealt with this exact scenario. His wife was rumored to be unfaithful. His closest advisors turned against him. People he elevated to power used that power to betray him, and his response wasn't what you'd expect from an emperor who commanded legions. He didn't fight to win back their loyalty. He didn't chase. He didn't demand explanations. He did something that seemed like surrender, but was actually the ultimate power move. But before we get to that, you need to understand why everything you've tried so far has only made things worse. You felt it, didn't you? That shift, that subtle change in their energy, the way they look at you now, or rather, the way they don't. The texts that used to come every hour now take days. The enthusiasm in their voice when they saw you replaced with politeness, cold, distant, professional. Like you're a stranger, they're being nice to obligation, and you keep replaying the conversations in your mind, searching for the moment it changed. Was it something you said? Something you didn't do? Were you too available? Not interesting enough? Too intense? Not intense enough? You scroll back through old messages, analyzing the shift, the difference between how they texted you 2 months ago and how they text you now. If they text you at all, you can feel in your chest right now that tightness, that knot of anxiety that wakes you up at 3 a.m. Because losing someone's interest doesn't just hurt, it attacks something deeper, your sense of worth, your identity, your place in their world, your belief that you matter. And here's what makes it worse. They haven't officially ended things. They haven't said the words. They're just fading, slowly becoming less available, less enthusiastic, less present. And that ambiguity, that hope mixed with dread, is psychological torture, because part of you knows it's over, but part of you keeps finding evidence that maybe, just maybe, if you do the right thing, say the right words, they'll come back. So you do what most people do. You try harder, you initiate more, you become more available, you laugh louder at their jokes, you plan things they might enjoy, you ask more questions about their day, their life, their feelings, you show more interest, you prove your value, you remind them of the good times, you become accommodating, flexible, understanding, and with every attempt, you feel them pulling further away. The more you reach out, the longer they take to respond. The more you show interest, the less they reciprocate. The more you try to connect, the more they create distance. And you notice things, small things that cut deep. They're active on social media, but not responding to you. They have time to go out with others. But they're too busy when you suggest meeting. They used to share their day with you. Now you have to ask. And even then, the answers are brief, surface level, polite. You've gone from being their person to being a person they have to deal with. Here's the truth nobody tells you. The moment you sense they were losing interest, they already had, and everything you've done since that moment, every extra text, every explanation of your worth, every attempt to rekindle what you had, every display of effort has only confirmed their decision to leave. You became the living evidence of why they're right to pull away. Because what does it say about someone's value when they have to constantly prove it? What does it say about someone's worth when they chase after someone walking away? What does it communicate about power when one person is desperately trying while the other barely tries at all? This isn't your fault. You weren't taught how to handle this. Society tells you to fight for what you want, to never give up, to show them your worth, to communicate, to be vulnerable, to try harder, to make grand gestures. Every movie, every song, every story tells you that persistence wins, that showing someone how much you care is romantic, that fighting for the relationship is noble. But they never told you that sometimes trying harder is exactly what destroys whatever chance remained, that there's a difference between fighting for something and chasing someone who's running away. The tragic part, you know this, deep down, beneath all the rationalization and hope, you can feel it every time you reach out and get a delayed response, every time you sense the obligation in their replies, every time you see them online but not responding to you, every time you suggest plans and get a vague maybe, but you can't stop yourself, because stopping feels like giving up, and giving up feels like admitting you weren't enough, weren't interesting enough, attractive enough, valuable enough, and that admission, that feels worse than the slow torture of watching them fade. So the cycle continues. They pull away, you chase. They pull further, you chase harder. They become annoyed, you become more accommodating. They see neediness. You try to hide it while desperately seeking reassurance. Until one day, they're gone completely, and you're left sitting there in the silence they left behind, wondering what you could have done differently, replaying every interaction, every message, every moment, searching for where it went wrong. But here's what you need to understand right now. The search for that moment is pointless, because the damage wasn't done in a single moment. The damage was done in every moment after you felt their interest waning, when you chose to prove your value, instead of protecting it. What if I told you that the moment you sensed their interest fading, there was one response, immediate and counterintuitive, that could have changed everything, not guaranteed to bring them back, but guaranteed to restore something more valuable in their attention. Your dignity, your power, your peace, your self-respect. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, Emperor of Rome, commander of legions, dealt with this exact scenario. His wife was rumored to be unfaithful. His closest advisors turned against him. People he elevated to power used that power to betray him. His most trusted generals conspired in the shadows. And his response wasn't what you'd expect from an emperor who commanded absolute power, who could have forced loyalty, demanded obedience, punished betrayal. He didn't fight to win back their loyalty. He didn't chase. He didn't explain his worth. He didn't try to prove his value. He didn't demand their presence. He did something that seemed like surrender, but was actually the ultimate power move, the response that preserved his dignity when everything else was falling apart. But before we get to that ancient solution, you need to understand why everything you've tried so far has only made things worse. why your instincts, as natural as they feel, are destroying what you're trying to save. Let's talk about the trap. Every action you've taken since you felt them pulling away felt right in the moment, didn't it? Texting them to check in, that felt caring. Making yourself more available, that felt generous. Showing more interest in their life, that felt attentive. Being more flexible and accommodating, that felt understanding. But here's what was actually happening. With each of those actions, you were sending an invisible message. A message you didn't mean to send, but a message they received loud and clear. My value depends on your presence. My peace requires your attention. My worth needs your validation. You thought you were showing care. They saw desperation. You thought you were being persistent. They felt pressure. You thought you were proving your value. They saw someone with no other options. And here's the cruel irony. The very things you did to prevent them from leaving became the reasons they had to, because nobody, and I mean nobody, is attracted to someone who needs them to feel whole. Nobody respects someone who abandons themselves to chase after them. Nobody values what they don't have to earn. This is a lie society sold you. They told you that showing someone how much you care is loving, that being available is respectful, that fighting for the relationship is honorable, that communication solves everything. But what they didn't tell you is that there's a difference between caring and clinging, between availability and desperation, between fighting for something and chasing someone who's running away, between communication and negotiating for affection. They especially didn't tell you this. When someone loses interest, the relationship is already over. What happens next is just documentation of how you handle loss. And that documentation determines whether you lose just them or yourself as well. Let me show you what I mean. Think about two men, both experiencing the same situation. Someone they care about is pulling away. The first man does what you did. He senses the distance, so he closes it. She becomes less responsive, so he texts more. She seems less interested, so he becomes more interesting or tries to. He makes himself more available, more flexible, more accommodating. He explains his feelings, shares his concerns, asks what's wrong, what changed, what he can do differently. He suggests counseling, coffee to talk, one more chance. And with each action, she pulls further away until finally she ends it. And when she does, she says something that destroys him. You're a great guy, but I need someone more confident, more independent, someone who doesn't need me to be happy. The second man senses the same shift, feels the same pain, has the same urge to chase, to fix, to prove, but he does something different. He does nothing, nothing from confusion, nothing from strategy, nothing from detachment. The moment he feels her interest waning, he stops initiating. He becomes less available, not out of revenge, but from self-preservation. He stops trying to prove his worth and starts protecting it instead. His texts become brief, friendly, unattached. His time becomes his own again. He doesn't explain, doesn't negotiate, doesn't chase, and something strange happens. Sometimes she comes back, curious about his change, attracted to his indifference, interested in what she thought she wanted to escape. But more importantly, whether she comes back or not, he keeps his dignity, his power, his sense of self. He loses her, but he doesn't lose himself. The first man lost both. This is what Marcus Aurelius understood, that you cannot control another person's interests, their feelings, their choices, but you can control your response, your dignity, your peace, and in that control lies all your power. But here's what makes this so difficult. Every instinct you have, every emotion you feel, is screaming at you to do the opposite, to chase, to prove, to fight, to try harder, because your ego is involved now. Your ego hates rejection. It takes losing someone's interest as evidence of your inadequacy, and it demands you prove it wrong. Show them what they're losing, make them see your value, but your ego is the worst advisor you have in this moment, because the ego doesn't want peace, it wants to be right, it doesn't want dignity, it wants validation, it doesn't want freedom, it wants to win, and in trying to win someone back, you lose yourself. The ancient Stoics called this attachment to externals, depending on things outside your control for your internal state. and they identified it as the primary source of human suffering. Epictetus, who was literally a slave, had more freedom than most free men because he understood something profound, that the only prison that matters is the one you build in your mind by needing things you cannot control. When you need someone's interest to feel valuable, you become a slave to their perception. When you need their presence to feel peaceful, you hand them control of your emotional state. When you need their validation to feel worthy, you abandon your sovereignty, and people can sense this. They can feel when someone needs them, and need, no matter how it's dressed up, is repulsive, not because people are cruel, but because need is the opposite of attraction. Need is a vacuum trying to be filled. Attraction is abundance overflowing. Think about it. When were you most attracted to others? When you needed them, or when you were complete without them, when you were chasing their approval, or when you were genuinely indifferent to it, when you were trying to prove your worth, or when you knew it without evidence. The most attractive version of you was a version that didn't need them at all. And the moment you started needing them was the moment they stopped wanting you. This isn't romantic. It's not what the movies show you. It's not what the love songs sing about. But it's the truth. And here's the hardest part. The part that makes it so painful. You have to let go, not to get them back, but because holding on is destroying you. You have to release them, not as a strategy, but as an act of self-preservation. You have to become indifferent to their interests, not to manipulate them, but to free yourself, because right now, in this moment, you're not losing them. You already lost them. What you're losing now is yourself, your peace, your power, your dignity, and that loss is the only one you can prevent. Marcus Aurelius watched his empire crumble. His wife betray him. His trusted advisors plot against him, and in his private journal, he wrote words that change everything. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't writing theory. He was documenting his survival, his guide for staying whole, when everything around him was falling apart. And his first instruction was simple: let go of what you cannot control, and focus every ounce of energy on what you can. Rome, 170 AD. The greatest empire in human history is at war on all fronts. Plague is ravaging the cities. The treasury is empty. Germanic tribes are crushing Roman legions in the north, and in his military tent, surrounded by maps of failing campaigns, Marcus Aurelius sits alone. His wife, the Empress Faustina, is rumored to be having affairs with gladiators and generals. His most trusted advisor has just been caught in a conspiracy. The Senate questions his leadership. His own son, the future emperor, is showing signs of the cruelty that will define his reign. Everything Marcus built, everyone he trusted, is crumbling or betraying him. And in this moment, what does the most powerful man in the world do? He opens his journal and writes, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they can't tell good from evil." He's not writing about enemies. He's writing about the people closest to him, the ones he elevated, the ones he trusted, the ones who are now walking away. But then he writes something that changes everything. "But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and I have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own, not the same blood or birth, but the same mind, and possessing a share of the divine." And then the crucial part, "And so none of them can hurt me. No one can implicate me in ugliness, nor can I feel angry at my relative or hate him. We were born to work together, like feet, hands, and eyes, like the two rows of teeth, upper and lower. To obstruct each other is unnatural. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions." Read that last line again. To feel anger at someone, to turn your back on him, these are obstructions. Marcus isn't saying chase them, to prove your value, to fight for their interest. He's saying release them without anger, let them go without hatred, accept their departure without making it mean something about your worth. Because here's what he understood that most people never grasp. When someone loses interest in you, it's not a judgment on your value. It's information about their capacity, their growth, their path, their limitations. Some people cannot recognize gold when it's in their hands. Some people prefer familiar pain to unfamiliar peace. Some people need to lose everything to understand what they had. And none of that, absolutely none of it, is your responsibility to fix. Your only responsibility in this moment is to preserve your dignity, maintain your peace, protect your energy. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. It's the foundation of everything they taught, the principle that saved them in impossible situations, the wisdom that kept them free when they were enslaved, powerful when they were persecuted, peaceful when everything was chaos. Here's how it works. There are two categories of things in life: things you control and things you don't. You control your thoughts, your responses, your actions, your focus, your effort, your character. You don't control other people's interests, their choices, their feelings, their perceptions, their paths, their growth. And here's the rule that changes everything. Invest your energy only in what you control. Release everything else, not because you don't care, but because caring about what you can control is self-destruction. When someone loses interest in you, you cannot control that. You cannot force interest, cannot negotiate attraction, cannot prove someone into caring, cannot chase them into staying, but you can control your response. You can choose dignity over desperation. You can choose self-respect over validation seeking. You can choose to release them immediately, completely, without explanation. This is a Stoic response. Not because it might bring them back, although sometimes it does, but because it's the only response that preserves what matters most, your sovereignty over your own mind. Seneca, another Stoic master, was advisor to Emperor Nero, one of the most dangerous men in history. For years, Seneca guided this young emperor, watching him transform from student to tyrant. And when Nero's paranoia turned toward him, when Seneca felt a shift in their relationship, the growing distance, the subtle threats, he didn't try to prove his loyalty, didn't chase Nero's favor, didn't negotiate for his position. He withdrew. Immediately, he offered to return all his wealth, to resign from his position, to remove himself from the palace. I've had enough. The years have given me all I need. Take back your gifts. Let me live the time I have left in peace. And when Nero eventually ordered his death, Seneca faced it with such calm, such dignity, such complete indifference to the fear Nero tried to instill, that his death became more powerful than his life. He showed that the only thing anyone truly controls is how they respond when everything is taken. This is what you need to understand right now. When someone loses interest in you, you're not losing power. You're being offered an opportunity, a choice, a test. Will you chase them, proving that your peace depends on their presence? Or will you release them, showing that your value exists whether they recognize it or not? Will you fragment yourself trying to hold on to them? Or will you remain whole, complete, sovereign, regardless of their choice? Epictetus, who spent most of his life as a slave with a crippled leg, had more wisdom about freedom than any king. He said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And then he gave this instruction, simple but devastating in its power. If you wish to live free, begin by making no request of anyone for anything. Read that again. If you wish to live free, begin by making no request of anyone for anything, not asking them to stay, to reconsider, to give you another chance, to explain what changed, to work on things, not requesting their time, their attention, their validation, their interest, nothing, because every request is an admission that you need something they control, and that need is a chain around your neck. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about yourself more than you need them to care about you. This doesn't mean you're cold. It means you're preserving the warmth inside you instead of burning it trying to heat someone who's walked into the cold. This doesn't mean you give up easily. It means you know the difference between fighting for something and begging for scraps. The path forward is clear. The moment you sense their interest fading, you stop completely, immediately, without explanation, not as revenge, not as strategy, as self-preservation. You withdraw your energy, your attention, your availability, your mental space. You become unreachable, not by blocking them, but by redirecting all that energy you were spending on them back to yourself, and in that redirection, you reclaim your power. Now, let's make this practical, because philosophy without application is just words, and you're here for transformation, not theory. When someone loses interest in you, here's exactly what you do immediately. Level 1, the immediate cut. The moment you sense it, and you know when you sense it, that shift in energy, that change in response time, that flatness in their voice, that distance in their eyes, you stop. Not tomorrow, not after one more conversation, to clear things up, not after you verify your intuition. Immediately, stop initiating contact. If they text, you respond, brief, friendly, unattached, but you never text first. Not for weeks, maybe not ever. Stop being available. You're busy now. You have plans, projects, focus. You're not waiting by your phone, analyzing response times. You're living. Stop explaining or discussing the relationship. If they ask what's wrong, nothing, just focus on some things right now. That's it. No emotional dumps, no negotiations, no processing sessions. Stop showing interest in their life. No more questions about their day, their feelings, their plans. If they share, you listen briefly, acknowledge, and redirect to your own focus. This feels wrong. Every instinct screams to do the opposite. But here's what's actually happening. You're creating space. Space for them to miss you. Space for you to remember who you were before them. Space for reality to set in when they're used to your pursuit, your availability, your interest, and suddenly it's gone. One of three things happens. They appreciate what they had and reach out. They continue pulling away, confirming your decision to release them, or they reach out from curiosity, ego, or habit. All three are valuable information. But more importantly, you're protecting yourself from becoming the person you'll hate later, the one who chased, who begged, who abandoned their dignity for breadcrumbs. Level 2, the internal shift. Stopping external behavior is only half. The real work happens inside. Every time you think about them, and you will constantly at first, you redirect, not suppression. Redirection. Your mind goes to, I wonder what they're doing. You redirect to, what am I doing right now that build me? Your mind goes to, maybe if I just... You redirect to, what can I control in this moment? Your mind goes analyzing what went wrong. You redirect to, what am I learning about boundaries, about self-respect, about letting go? This is meditation in action, not sitting on a cushion. Living the philosophy when it's hardest. Marcus Aurelius did this constantly in his journal. You see him catching himself, redirecting himself, reminding himself, you're wasting your time. Let other people's actions remain what they are. Just concentrate on your response. That's your domain, your power. Every thought about them is energy flowing away from you. Every moment analyzing their behavior is a moment not building yourself. Every second hoping they'll change their mind is a second abandoning your own. The goal isn't to stop caring. It's to start caring about yourself more than you need them to care about you. Level 3, the power paradox. Here's where it gets interesting. As you withdraw, as you redirect, as you focus on yourself, something shifts. At first, it's exhausting, fighting the urge to reach out, to check their social media, to drive by their location, to manufacture accidental meetings. But then, after a week, maybe two, something changes. You wake up one morning, and you don't immediately think about them. You go a few hours without checking your phone. You make plans without wondering if they'll interfere. And that's when the real power emerges. You start remembering what you liked before you met them, what made you feel alive, complete, interesting. You reconnect with friends you neglected, projects you'd abandoned, goals you postponed, yourself you've forgotten. And here's the paradox the Stoics understood. The moment you truly stop needing them, you become interesting again. The moment you're genuinely okay without them, you become attractive again. The moment you reclaim your independence, you display the quality they originally wanted. Sometimes this brings them back. Curious about your change, attracted to your indifference, interested in what they thought they wanted to escape. But here's the crucial part. By the time they come back, if they come back, you might not want them anymore because you've remembered something more important than their interest: your power, your peace, your sovereignty. Epictetus taught his students, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Their interest? Not in your power. Your response? Completely in your power. Your peace? In your power. Your growth? In your power. Your dignity? In your power. Level 4, the permanent shift. This isn't a technique to win them back. If you approach it that way, it won't work, because they'll sense a manipulation, the hidden agenda, the covert contract. This is a fundamental shift in how you exist in the world, from someone whose peace depends on external validation to someone whose peace is internally generated, from someone who needs to be chosen to someone who chooses themselves first, from someone who loses themselves in relationships to someone who remains whole with or without them. This is what the ancient Stoics meant by inner citadel, the part of you that cannot be touched by external events, the fortress of your mind that remains standing. When everything around you crumbles, you build this fortress brick by brick. Every time you choose dignity over desperation, self-respect over validation, letting go over holding on, and once you build it, truly build it, you become unshakable, not because nothing hurts you, but because nothing controls you. People can come and go, interests can rise and fall, circumstances can change, chaos can reign, and you remain whole, sovereign, free. This is a transformation Marcus Aurelius achieved, not by controlling Rome, but by releasing his need to control anything outside his own mind. This is the freedom Epictetus found, not when his chains were removed, but when he stopped seeing anyone as capable of chaining him. This is a power Seneca demonstrated, not in his wealth and position, but in his willingness to release both without losing himself. When someone loses interest in you, you're being offered the same transformation, not a technique, a philosophy, a way of being, a permanent shift from external validation to internal sovereignty. The question is, will you take it? 6 months from now, you're sitting somewhere you love, coffee shop, park, your favorite spot, and you realize you haven't thought about them in days, not because you hate them, not because you're over it, but because you're so deeply invested in your own life that they become a memory, not a wound. And if you did think about them in this moment, you'd think, I'm grateful. Not grateful they stayed, grateful they left, because their leaving forced you to find something you lost long before you met them, yourself. This is what awaits you on the other side of this pain. A version of yourself you've never met. Stronger, clearer, more integrated, more whole. Someone who can love without needing, care without clinging, engage without losing themselves, walk away without hating. But you have to earn it. You earn it every time you feel the urge to reach out. And don't. Every time you want to check their profile and choose not to. Every time you start crafting the perfect text and delete it instead. Every time you imagine scenarios where they come back and redirect to building your actual life. Each moment of resistance is a brick in your fortress. Each choice of dignity over desperation is a step towards sovereignty. The ancient Stoics lived this. Marcus Aurelius ruled the world's greatest empire, but his power came from his indifference to ruling. His strength came from his willingness to lose it all. Epictetus had nothing, owned nothing, controlled nothing, but his freedom was absolute because he needed nothing external to be whole. Seneca possessed great wealth and influence, but his peace came from his readiness to release both. His power came from his detachment. These men understood something most people never learn. True power isn't getting what you want. It's being complete whether you get it or not. Real strength isn't making people stay. It's being whole when they leave. Genuine freedom isn't controlling outcomes. It's being unshakable regardless of outcomes. And right now, in this moment, you're being initiated into this ancient understanding, not through theory, through fire. Someone walking away from you feels like death, because part of you is dying, the part that needed them to feel valuable, the the part that required external validation to feel worthy, the part that couldn't exist without their interest, that part has to die, not them, that part of you. And like all death, it's painful, but like all death, it makes room for new life. The version of you that emerges from this doesn't need anyone to stay, doesn't require validation to feel worthy, doesn't fragment when someone leaves. This version of you becomes magnetic because people sense when someone is complete, when someone doesn't need them, when someone has built internal sovereignty. And paradoxically, that's when everyone wants you, when you don't need anyone. But here's what makes this transformation permanent. It's not about them coming back or not coming back. It's not about winning or losing. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about this moment right now. When you make a choice, will you chase them, proving that your peace depends on their presence? Or will you release them, showing that your value exists whether they recognize it or not? Will you spend the next months analyzing what went wrong, replaying conversations, imagining different scenarios? Or will you spend that time building something so compelling that looking back becomes impossible? Will you become bitter and closed? Or will you become wiser and more selective? Will you see this as rejection of your worth, or as information about their capacity? The choice determines everything, not whether they come back. Whether you do, Marcus Aurelius wrote in his final years, as his health failed and death approached, loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. He wasn't talking about accepting loss as punishment. He was revealing loss as transformation, as nature's way of pushing you toward who you're meant to become. The person you're meant to become cannot emerge while you're clinging to who you were. The strength you need cannot develop while you're avoiding pain. The wisdom you're seeking cannot arrive while you're running from loss. So here's your instruction from 2,000 years of tested philosophy, from men who faced worse than you and conquered themselves. Let them go immediately, completely, without anger, without explanation, without hope of return, not as a strategy to win them back, as an act of self-preservation, self-respect, self-love. Redirect every ounce of energy you were spending on them back to yourself, your goals, your growth, your presence, your peace. Build your inner citadel, brick by brick, choice by choice, redirect by redirect, until you're so deeply fortified in your own sovereignty that nothing external can shake you. And then, whether they come back or not, whether you win them back or never speak again, whether this ends in reconciliation or permanent separation, you'll be free, not because circumstances went your way, but because you stopped needing circumstances to go any particular way to be whole. This is a Stoic victory, not controlling outcomes, controlling your response to outcomes, not making people stay, remaining whole when they leave, not avoiding pain, transforming pain into power. 3 simple words that contain everything you need. Let them go. And in that letting go, find yourself, because what you're really losing isn't them. It's the illusion that you ever needed them to be complete. You were always whole. You just forgot. Now, remember, this is your moment, your initiation, your transformation from someone who needs to be chosen to someone who chooses themselves first, from external validation to internal sovereignty, from fragmentation to integration. The ancient Stoics are watching across millennia, waiting to see if you'll join them, not in death, in philosophy, in freedom, in the unshakable peace that comes from releasing everything you cannot control. Your move